Fren saw her sister Ramir lounging with her friend Tinley, the two-eye Paul passing away their idle time in the cantina, much like her. Ramir was yellow in fur colour, though hers was brighter and more sunshine in tone. Her snout and paws were a little more dainty as well, though her ears were larger. Ramir had always been the beauty of the family, while Fren had been the bruiser. Tinla was one of the black furs and looked as if she had been dipped in penning. She had been hoping to surprise them with her arrival on the station, and it appeared she had been right to spread the white lie of having to go back down to earth for a little while. Fren smiled to herself as she ducked her head and made her way through the crowd. It felt alien to her only wearing civilian clothing, and she felt naked without her XC-1 Lancer rifle. She was allowed, and so were all human military troopers, to wear a pistol still, and she had hers in a chest holster. Much to her amusement, hers was made by alien gear, and even featured both a cartoonish alien head and the United American States' First Amendment on the crossbar. By the time she looped her way around the cantina, she was directly behind her sister and dug her fingers into the eyepole's sides. Ramir screeched as Fren's fingers plunged into her ribs, and her fur instantly floofed in pained, ticklish panic. "Hello, sister," Fren cried out, then began lacing kisses all over Ramir's face, cheeks and snout as she continued tickling. Everyone around them in the cantina turned to look, some shaking their heads while others giggled behind their hands. Ramir tried to pry away her sister's hands, but Fren had been trained and fortified by the humans, and her grip was as sure as stone. Bren, get off me." Tinley exhaled out her nose, leaning to the side to avoid the two tussling yellow Urals and making sure they didn't knock her konas out of her hand. "I've missed you so much," Fren cried out in genuine affection, lifting the sunshine yellow eel with ease and spinning her around. "Look how small and dainty you still are." Tinley had to duck a few times, avoiding Ramir's kicking feet. "You're huge," Ramir cried out, giggling in alarm, her eyes still squinted against her sister's fusillade of kisses. "What have the humans been feeding you?" Tinla took a moment to observe the two sisters. Ramir was still trying to get free of her sister, while Fren continued to pour on the love along with the muscle. Fren was nearly 3 inches taller than her sister. When Tinley had seen pictures of them before, they had been nearly the same height before Fren had left for training, and Tinley found that curious. Even odder was the difference in muscle mass. Ramir was still the light, athletic beauty she had always been, but that did not mean she was strong in any regard. Her muscles did not deform her fur, and she still had trouble opening lids or jars due to her more metropolitan lifestyle. Fren, on the other hand, looked like an absolute monster. Her muscles were thick, rugged, and even her thigh muscles were showing through her tight-fitting tactical lounge pants. Her arm fur showed off the contours of her arm muscles like fluffy mountains, and Tinley quietly wondered too what the humans had been feeding her. It didn't end there, though. Fren looked different. Tinla didn't want to think she was scary or anything, but she did look, well, scarier. Her eyes held a kind of hard edge even as she looked lovingly at her sister, and her body was held together, rigid, poised. If anything, it looked as if Fren could kill right then and there, then go and buy a corn dog without much trouble. Fren finally set her sister down, then stood back, setting her hands on her hips. "Geez, I bet you're giving all the men on this station trouble, aren't you?" "No," Ramir stammered, even though Tinley was idly nodding her head behind her back. "And what about you? You said you had to go down to Earth for more training." Fren nodded. "I do, but I had to come up here and give some kind of report. Figured I'd surprise my little darling sister." Fren pinched her sister's cheeks with both her hands, making Ramir yowl and bat her hands away. "Stop it. You're as bad as Mama." Tinley chuckled behind Ramir, drinking from her konas. Your mum is a howl, by the way. Calls over the station link every morning to make sure Ramir is brushing her fur correctly, probably hoping to marry her away during the shamed. Friend sighed, then crossed her arms as she remembered her mother trying to do the same to her, making her flee and join the whole human military initiative in the first place. Holy cow, friend, Ramira said in a hushed tone, tilting her head at Fren as she observed how her arm muscles bulged as she crossed her arms. Look how big you are. As Ramira ran her paws along Fren's arms, she looked at Tinley. Holy cow, she's been digging deep into human slaying, Tinley said offhandedly, waving her pawed hand. You should have heard her practicing how to say radical in the right pretense. But her muscles are radical, Ramira said, squeezing Fren's bicep. Look how big her shar is. It's like she stuffed apples into her skin. Tinley snorted. Looks like she stuffed a lot of things in a lot of places. I'm pretty sure if she squats down too low, those pants are going to explode. They're not going to explode, Fren said in confusion while unfolding her arms, pulling at the fabric with her fingers. They have spannick woven into the cotton. See? Wah, Ramira said with a gasp, now noticing just how much larger her sister's chest was. Did the humans give you those too? Fren, for the first time in a while, felt embarrassed. Huh? What? Number? You do a lot of chest exercises during training and PT, so the muscles get bigger. The humans give us a lot of fatty foods for chow, like cheese and stuff. Paul shouldn't have cheese and stuff, you know, Tinley mimed, knowing what happened to the male and female Yorels. They make us store fat really easy. You should have seen some of our fellow male students after they discovered poutine. 10 of those bastards had to get put on calorie restrictions. Don't get me started on the things the more human-inclined females have been doing. Fren narrowed her eyes at that, then swatted away her sister's hands as they felt at her abdominal muscles. What do you mean? They're trying to be more appealing, Tinley mused, shaking her canister, trying to get rounder figures. Ipal are not meant to be round, Fren said, wondering if she had to use up some of her free time here to slap some sense into the female eyeball on the station. Tinley shrugged. A side effect of living around humans so much. You should see our teacher, that Samra is even wearing jeans. Fren raised her eyebrow at that, then slung her arm around Ramira's shoulders. By the way, where are those little metal things? The canister? Ramira asked, pointing to her sticker-covered one and Tinley's, which was also covered in stickers. Canister? Fren said. Ramira shook her head. No, canister. What the hell is a canister? Fren asked, now doubly confused. Ramira pointed over to a large shop that sat within the cantina. They're little canisters that keep hot drinks hot and cold drinks cold. So it's a canister, Fren growled in frustration, at which Ramira and Tinley both laughed. No, it's a canister, Ramira giggled out, then took her sister by the hand, leading her towards the shop as Tinley followed behind them. When the opticon... Fren rolled her eyes. Of course it involves those stupid bird people. I don't like them either, Tinley murmured behind the pair, then went back to slurping on her straw. They say words wrong all the time with their stupid beaks and their damn feathers. When the opticon got on station, they liked ice water since they overheated a lot in the beginning with their training, Ramira began again, but was interrupted once more by the 2 other Yorel. Imagine being too weak for Earth's gravity, Fren snorted. Tinley chuffed a breath of air out her nose in response, muttering around her straw, or needing to eat a bunch of calcium tabs and medical nanotech to reweave their bone structure. To keep their water cool, Ramira interjected, her ears pinning back in aggravation, and to keep themselves cool when they found the canisters, or thermoses, if I remember what the humans call them correctly. They thought only the cantina had them, so they combined the word cantina and canister. They thought they were quite clever, calling them cantinas. And the humans, for whatever reason, are highly fond of Opticon speaking patterns, so they were dubbed canisters, and even have the name stamped on the bottom of them. While her sister was yapping into her ear about the other news around the station, Fren picked up one of these canisters, though she picked one that was olive drab green so it matched the rest of her on-duty wardrobe. After she had gotten her canister, Fren went straight to the long line of coffee treffs and began pouring in a steady stream of dark roast. "Wow, are you sure?" Tinley asked Fren. "That stuff tastes really strong. None of us can even handle a mouthful of it." Fren shrugged a shoulder. "It's all we get to drink in the garrison or in the fleet. If you want coffee, you get it soul black, as the humans call it, or you get nothing at all. You learn to appreciate it. Plus, I get to drink more of it. Ramira and I have to drink the golden roast. It's all our tongues can handle," Tinley murmured, watching with open jealousy as Fren turned up the POR valve and screwed on the canister cap straight up. No milk or anything. Fren turned to look at the black-furred Yorel, her cap groaning quietly as she took it just past hand tight. "Yeah, why do you two put milk in it?" "Nearly half milk," Ramira said in awe. "You're able to just drink it like it is?" Fren nodded. "Yeah." "I guess your sister is hardcore, Rayma," Tinley said breathlessly, not even able to imagine drinking an entire container of black coffee with nothing in it to dull the taste. "Is that part of some human warrior cult thing?" Ramira asked, refilling her own cantina with eyeball-level roast and then pouring milk into it. "Miss Ricky was telling us about the little cults that make up the human military." "No, it's 1600 and I'm flagging and need caffeine kind of thing," Fren chuckled, taking a sip of her coffee and tapping her card to a small screen nearby, paying for it. Tinley saw her balance and whistled through her teeth. "Human military pays well." "More like I have nothing to spend my money on," Fren replied, at which Ramira slowly turned around, looking over her shoulder. "I have an idea where you can spend that money," Ramira said, then fluttered her eyelashes. "After all, you did miss my Yonlo while you were gone, and all our parents sent me was a card." Fren shook her head from side to side, then let out a small laugh before turning to her sister. "All right, let's go shopping then. I'm sure there are some things I need aboard the station as well anyway. From what the layout infers, this place is just a giant shopping mall." What Fren was not prepared for was Ramira's voracious appetite for shopping, and after the drought brought upon by their parents, Fren found herself performing as the deluge her sister required. Ramira, however, was not prepared for her sister's newfound grit, as the pushover Jarl she once knew was now a hardened combat veteran. There were multiple times when Fren grabbed her sister by both her ears and gave her a shake, especially when she got too whiny. Fren found Tinley far more polite, something the black-furred Yorel were not known for, and got her a gift when she showed a lot of attention to a graphic T-shirt in an oddly grim-themed store. Ramira still got her pound of flesh out of Fren, and was happily walking along the promenade with 2 armfuls of bags. Fren herself found a few things she liked, mostly lounge pants and a few sweaters that were all the rage on the station due to how chilly it was. They had all settled down to an early lunch some hours later when Fren's service slate gave a light chirp. She pulled it out from her sling pack, tapping it awake with the pad of her paw as she narrowed her eyes at the slate. Ramira looked up from her large plate of mall Chinese, a notorious selection of food humans were renowned for in terms of saucy junk chow. Tinley, still trying to get the hang of chopsticks, looked over as well. "Something wrong, sis?" Ramira asked, slurping a noodle up too quickly and causing it to whack her across the nose. Tinley tilted her own head at Fren as the mustard-yellow Yorel read her slate, then wiggled her haphazard chopsticks at her. "I think your visit is getting cut short. Those brows and narrowed eyes say, 'Official expletive,'" Tinley said quietly. Fren sighed, then stood up, grabbing her already empty tray of food. She ate faster than these two simply out of military habit. "I have to go in early for my meeting. It appears a few Yal elders are on station." Tinley blinked up at Fren. "Elders here? Why would they come all the way to this station?" "I don't know, but I guess I'm going to find out," Fren muttered, then turned, dumping her cardboard tray into a nearby recycling slot. "When I'm done, I'll send you a peeve whip so we can link back up. Hopefully, this won't take too long." Tinley held her hand to her eyebrow, grinning cheekily. "Ma'am?" "Yes, ma'am." Ramira inhaled with a snort of laughter, then started coughing on a stray noodle that found its way into her. Fren did not like being in meetings, and this one felt worse than being in a room with her NCOs and COSOs. They had her at a little table wide enough for one and a roller chair that kept trying to make her wiggle back and forth to get comfortable. Ahead of her was a far longer table on the same level and only 5 feet away. At the head of the table were 4 Uipal elders, and most of them were looking at Fren as if they had smelled expletive at the bottom of their shoes. On the far end was a female Zamra wearing a smart business suit, and on the other far end was a male Po, though he looked as grizzled as Fren did. When their gaze met, he winked at her, and she felt a small paw come over her. "One of me," Fren thought to herself, and she found her nerves settling. "Kai Fren Yut, stand before your elders in the correct posture," one of the male elders roared, his white fur flecked at the ends with black. "Or have you become so infected by human culture that you have forgotten our ways?" Fren barely held back the growl in her throat. It had been a very long time since she had to perform the choral to someone, and for some reason it made her extremely angry to do it now. Her eyes cut to the point as she moved to stand, and he gave her a very short inch of a nod, as if saying, "Just do it and get it over with." Fren exhaled slowly out of her nose, got onto her knees, held her balled fist to her chest, then leaned forward until the nose of her snout was touching the ground. It felt humiliating to do this now. She was a killer, a soldier forged by human warriors, and they had never asked her to bow or touch her damn nose to the ground. Her heart burned in rage, something she had never felt before in such a way until now. The white-furred elder continued speaking. "Kai Fren Yut, you have been called before this council to administer a full report on humans and their tendencies in war. We believe this is pertinent now that the war wave is only a few days away from beginning their mass offensive. We saw it prudent that we be here personally, far away from the war wave as possible." "You expletive cowards," Fren thought to herself, and the feeling that washed over her was alien. It was pure, unfiltered hatred, and it made her eyes water with shame as she prostrated herself like this before these people. Humans didn't make her do this. Humans didn't make her feel shame. "Rise and take your seat, Kai," the elder said, and he never masked the disgust on his tongue when he said that one word. Fren mastered herself, blinked the shame sting from her eyes, and rose from the ground, taking the seat. The Point and Zamra seemed to know exactly how she felt, and their faces were hardened compared to the pompous smugness of the Uipal elders. "Miss Ree," one of the female elders said, her fur light purple and going white at the tips. Miss Ricky cleared her throat, tapping her data slate to life, and she smiled kindly at Fren. "May I call you Fren?" "Yes, that is fine, Miss Ricky," Fren responded, her voice tight. Miss Ricky smiled brightly again, her draconic head fronds wiggling at her. "Very good, Fren. The elders here have a belief that they wish to discuss with you, and since you are the highest-ranking Uipal in the human military, being a corporal, they believe you will have the best thoughts on the subject." "As good of thoughts as a Kawai may have," another male Uipal elder murmured, his own fur completely dark grey. "This is a human station," Miss Ricky snapped suddenly, and she turned her gaze to the elders, violence hot in her eyes. "And on this human station, you will not disparage this Paul, doubly so for her being a uniformed NCO of the human military. The tension in the room skyrocketed, and Friend could smell the musk of anger and fear from the elder Paul. The point cleared his throat, speaking out with a calm, smooth voice. This is the way of the humans, and we must adhere to their rules while on their station. Corporal Friend has every right to lodge complaints against you, as it is. Making her bow like that is what I do. That is how they respect their betters, the white-furred Yorel elder shouted. I will not have a Kawai stand before me and not show their obedience. The point and Miss Ricky grew cold around the eyes, and Miss Ricky looked to the point. Mr. Ryson is correct. You cannot treat her this way on this station, nor will I allow it. Or do I have to remind you who I am? Miss Ricky said, and her fronds gave a threatening twitter from her head. Friend was now deeply curious who this Zamra was, and why all the elders, as well as the P.O., looked rather afraid of her. Miss Ricky tapped her data slate, then turned to Fryn. The Council of Yal Elders believes that the humans may be compensating in their bloodshed out of fear. Do you agree? What? Fryn sputtered, the question taking her so off guard it caused a comical mental double-take. Compensating because they're afraid. What horseshit is this? The white-haired elder went to leap to his feet in outrage, but a single glance from Miss Ricky, as well as a cocking of the shoulders from Mr. Ryson, kept him in check. The more polite male Paul elder spoke up, his fur a tawny brown. There are many within the councils that believe the humans may be, shall we say, over-exaggerating their fierceness in combat, as if trying to mask a hidden fear or hiding the fact they fear war in general. They have gone into combat with such overwhelming power, but some believe they may be trying to keep something under wraps from the rest of us, or trying to keep their power in line with their reputation, or trying to make themselves look better to the other races. You, being on loan to the humans under military service in order to gain information on their warrior culture, would know better than any of us. We hope that you can put these rather odd rumours and ideas to rest, the purple-furred female elder said, looking pointedly to a few of her fellow elders, the white-furred Paul in particular. Not to mention, you were there during an exposition of human war magic and saw it firsthand. Do you, Kai Fryn, believe that the humans are hiding a deep fear of war? Hell no, Fryn laughed out, the absurdity of it all hitting her right in the funny bone. They love war. The white-furred elder slammed his palm to the table. It's a lie, a bold-faced lie from a Kai nonetheless. Humans are over-aggressive, over-fierce, and over-exaggerated. No one goes out of their way like that to do combat. Who diverts an entire battleship to a simple distress call? Who sends so many troops to the front line in such numbers? They are hiding something. There is no reason for it. There is a weakness they are trying to keep away from all of us, or some underhanded plan for power, because they fear not being on top or being needed. You will tell us now, Kai. I'm not going to tell you a goddamn thing, Fryn roared, standing up so suddenly her little table toppled over, thudding against the carpet. Who are you to demand such a thing of me? Who am I? The white-furred elder roared back. I am your... Fryn, her blood bubbling in her veins, jabbed a finger at the white-furred elder, her limbs shaking. You are nothing to me. You come here calling me Kai, and made me perform the choral. You made me press my nose to the ground as if I have done something wrong when you sent me here. The humans have been nothing but good to me and treat me like I am one of their own, while you treat me like trash. I have earned my stripes, earned my veterancy. I bled with the humans and my fellow Paul on the battlefield, while you run and hide next to Earth as the war wave approaches. There was disquiet in the room as the silent part was said aloud, and all the Paul elders' ears came back in an awkward pin. Fryn, seeing their faces, their ears, and smelling their musk of anxiety and fear, let out an angry scream and kicked her chair across the room with her shoed paw. The chair shattered into a dozen pieces, though Miss Ricky did not react as some of the plastic tinkled onto the table in front of her. Being reduced in status like this by the elder Paul was agonizing to Fryn, and she had to do something, to break something, before she broke them instead. All but Elder Trek and Elder Cordal will now leave, Miss Ricky said politely, even as Fryn openly rumbled a growl in her throat, her hackles raising from under her shirt to plume around her neck. You will leave now, for your own safety. Mr. Ryson stood up and placed a hand on Fryn's shoulder as the ejected elders began to make their way toward the door, their wary eyes on Miss Ricky. Easy, Corporal. If you touch them, not even we can help you. The warning and his words made Fryn calm down an inch or two, then blinked in confusion. Elder Trek, the purple-furred female elder, came around and set a different chair down in front of Fryn. So odd, seeing a female Yoral like you. I can see why Elder V-Band was so afraid and wanted you to do the call, she said, smoothing down her immaculate robes and sitting back down. It seems you are right, Miss Ricky. The humans are afflicting the other races. Miss Ricky nodded. I was not wrong, was I? It appears that even Corporal Fryn here has a little dusting of the human magic as well. You say this part of their pathokinetic tendencies? Elder Cordal asked. Their brains and skin are affecting others. Miss Ricky nodded. I believe that is where most of it stems from, for now anyway. It is currently all I have to go on. Fryn turned to look at the point, Mr. Ryson, but he just gestured to the seat and walked back to his own. Fryn, tell us about humans in combat, Elder Cordal said cordially, his tawny fur looking more at ease. Are you hiding near Earth to avoid the war? Fryn asked brazenly, locking her eyes onto the tawny-furred Yal elder. Cordal nodded. Yes, we are. However, that is not why we are here. We are here because you are here, and we have been receiving quite interesting reports on you. You have been leading Yoral into battle alongside humans, and their own reports on you have been glowing, so much so that we have waves of renegade Yal taking the Kawai title and fleeing to Earth for training. Elder Trek said, giving a small laugh. So, tell us about them in combat. Fryn looked to Miss Ricky and Mr. Ryson, both of them nodding back to her, and she now felt a little awkward in the aftershock of her outburst. Well, I think it is when humans truly come alive. I think it's where their true colours come out. They are not all brave, but I don't think the military is made up of the more light-hearted humans, the ones on the front lines, the warriors. They wade into combat in war, without fear. How do they make you feel? Miss Ricky asked, tapping lightly on her data slate as Fryn spoke. Or should I say, how do you feel around them? Fryn shrugged. Like I am one of them. In the beginning, they treated me like a joke, like an alien, I suppose. But when I earned my way and shed blood with them, I don't know, I felt like I belonged. They made me feel like I belonged. Anyway, they don't treat me like a Yoral, and they don't treat others like Poe or Karlians. To the humans, you're just a weird-looking human with a lot of fur, I guess. How do you mean? Elder Trey asked, leaning forward and resting her head on the back of her P.O. hands. When I was a soldier, with our own people on Dagmar Prime, and when we would fight with the other star citizens there was never this feeling. We fought, we separated, and that was that. With the humans, after the bloodshed, you feel like you are safe with family. The humans fight with a fury I have never seen before, never bore witness to before, and they fight not only for themselves, but for you as well. A burned male human officer bore me off into battle. A severely wounded female trooper defended me from a mandarin, and it was innate. They just do it. You don't have to ask, you don't have to beg, you just have to earn your place. Fryn's mind flashed with the faces of all the humans, one by one, smiling at her, or giving her this look she could not explain. When you wear their warrior green, go through the training and fight beside them. You stop being Wipal or Poe, or whatever you may be. You are one of them. You are more. Miss Ricky rapidly tapped on her data slate, then looked up at Fryn. How do they look at you? Their eyes? What do they say? Fryn, despite herself, found her throat suddenly hard to speak with, as her mind filled with more human faces. She focused in on the looks the male and female humans had given her after battle, after their drops together into the roar of war. I don't know why, but when they look at me, I feel like I'm human, one of them. My mind says friend, but it's more. It goes beyond friendship. Brotherhood, Mr. Ryson said, the single word filling the room. Fryn slowly nodded her head. Yes, yes, I believe that is the correct word. Brotherhood. As if fighting with them proves you are worthy of their shared soul. That is rather deep of you, Kawai Fryn, Elder Cordal murmured. Do you believe this is why they love war like they do, as a time of proving oneself worthy of brotherhood? Fryn took a quick gulp of coffee from her cantina, popping the drinking gap closed with a crisp click of plastic steel. I think there's more to it. I'm sure that is part of it, don't get me wrong, but I also believe that humans simply love to fight. The humans in my unit are always fighting each other in mock battle, but they never tire of it, never become bored of it. It makes them stronger and tighter as a unit in a lot of ways. I have never felt more alive than I have on the battlefield. I have learned to enjoy the seconds and savour them as if they are days. I have learned to savour the taste of coffee as if I'm drinking ambrosia, because I have come face to face with death so many times, and each time the humans have pulled me through. I think humans love war, and to some degree death, because it makes them appreciate life more than anything else ever could. I also think they're more willing, if not more happy, to give their life in the betterment of those around them. Miss Ricky looked to Mr. Ryson, while Elder Cordal and Elder Trek shared a look as well. Elder Trek tilted her head at Fryn as she spoke. I did find it curious that humans would so willingly go into battle for such minuscule reasons, such as when you drop down to help the remnants of the Niku refugees, or a struggling unit of mixed-race soldiers. Your entire battleship went off course. Do you believe that the humans would do this for anyone? Do you believe they are selective? Many believe they do this to butter up the other councils for power. I believe they would happily fight and die for those they consider friends or allies worth having, Fryn said without pause, surprising even herself at how easily the words flowed out of her. What about you? Elder Trek asked, her ears perked. Would you die just as the humans would? Would you die like a human? Fryn felt the statement leave her mouth before she even had time to think it over, her voice stalwart and firm. Yes. Why? Fryn took a short breath, blinked, then looked at both of the remaining Yorel elders. Because this is the human path. It is the path I walk now as well. When the call goes out, I arrive with thunder. Miss Ricky stopped tapping on her data slate, then smiled warmly at Fryn. Thank you, Fryn. That will be all. Elders, please head up to the secondary room like we discussed. Mr. Reson and I will meet you shortly. Fryn nodded to Miss Ricky, then to Mr. Rayson, and quickly left the room, her head and heart filled with a mixture of emotions that she would have to find time to wrangle later. Oddest of all is that she did not long for her sister or even for other Yal. Her heart missed where she belonged, amongst the humans in Warrior Green. It has hurt deep, Mr. Ryson said, lighting up a human cigarette and taking a long pull from it before blowing the smoke past his lips. Her elders didn't even have an effect on her. Miss Ricky nodded, pulling up her latte that she had hidden from view during the entire meeting. I thought the pathokinesis was bad when humans touched us, but I think it becomes far more effective during combat. The human love for bloodshed may accelerate their mental and physical effects. They're not going to take her back. They're going to leave her to the humans because they can't control her anymore, Mr. Ryson said, looking at the ember of his cigarette as his pointed ears twitched. There are over 3,000 yol heading this direction for training. Their councils will not be pleased. It was a foregone conclusion that Corporal Fryn was never going to go back to Dagmar Prime, Miss Ricky replied, finishing the notes she had tapped on her data slate with one hand, while the other brought her cup to her lips. She took a long drink, then set the latte down. As soon as the Yal recruits hit Earth, the humans are going to have them locked and keyed. Mr. Ryson nodded, then took another pull from his cigarette, holding the smoke in his lungs for a few blissful heartbeats before blowing it out. There was a long pause, then he looked to Miss Ricky. She said she felt like she was human. I know, Miss Ricky said, putting her data slate in her own bag. Mr. Rayson raised his eyebrows at her, his face sarcastic. We both took human lovers, yet we don't think like her. What do you think the reason is behind that? Maybe it is, like I said, the human pathokinesis is far more intense. During war, humans feel deeper, become more human, and at the same time more bestial in combat. Maybe it unlocks something within the humans that enters the brain via smell or touch or something else, Miss Ricky said, standing up from her chair and clearing her thick tail from it. Or, Mr. Rissoyne said lowly, his fully coloured eyes peering at Miss Ricky pensively. The soul? Miss Ricky took a few steps toward the door, then took in a deep breath as she turned to look at Mr. Rayson, the ever hard to find and even harder to prove. Soul. There was a long pause in the room as the two held each other's eyes, Star Citizen to Star Citizen. Miss Ricky turned, swishing her tail and holding up an empty hand, palm to the sky, as she left a final word in the room for Mr. Ryson. Maybe,